Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting for Monday, April the 8th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Just a reminder for anybody in the audience that this meeting could be, or not could be, it's actually recorded for public access and broadcast. So with that, could I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Before we do that, actually, I do want to bring up, we do have, oh no, actually,
No, we're not.
we're good.
Yeah.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Plant, seconded by Councillor Colwell. Questions to the motion? Colwell, yeah. No questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded. Motion carried. With that, remind participants, councillors tonight that if there's any conflict of interest declarations, forms are in the middle of the table. Please look at the agenda. If there's any conflict of interest, please fill in the form stating the reason and pass it into the clerk. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda minutes? Number one, the regular council meeting for March the 11th, 2024.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Dettori. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Aye. Contrary minded. Motion carried. Moving on to item number two, committee of the whole meeting, March 25th, 2024. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes, please? So moved. Moved by Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Thorne. All in favor of the motion? Are there any questions to the motion? All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Councillors will receive the consent agenda package for your enjoyable pursuit. Are there any, do I have a motion to accept the agenda, the consent agenda, item number 5? So moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. With that, item number 6, public and administrative presentation.
And this evening.
Moving on to item number 7, reports and recommendations from committees and private meetings. Item number 1, recommendations from the closed session from November 14th, 2023.
I'm gonna step
So
for this one.
And please note that Councillor Thorne is up
here
there,
on page
having declared councillor.
I got lost. Okay.
no, so we're at line 34. So as always, with any items that come from a closed session or committee of the whole session, we have a background that we'll read for context prior to having a recommendation on the floor. So for this one, the background is as follows. The town's Department of Recreation and Wellness, utilizes the Salisbury Baptist Church or SBC gymnasium for much of our town programming, ranging from fitness and Zumba to pickleball and summer camps. To formalize the reciprocal arrangement between the town and the SBC as it relates to booking priorities, annual payment for the use of spaces, access to facilities, insurance, indemnification, etc., both parties have reached a reciprocal agreement. This was discussed in closed session pursuant to the Local Governance Act on November 14th, 2023, and has since been reviewed and approved by the Salisbury Baptist Church Board of Trustees with 2 amendments. The agreement will last for a period of 3 years, ending on January 1, 2027, with an option to extend for an additional 3 years. And with that, there is a recommendation on the floor.
I move that council approve the reciprocal agreement between the town and the Board of Trustees of the Salisbury Baptist Church and direct the mayor and clerk treasurer to sign and affix the corporate seal accordingly.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gallant, seconded by Councillor Colwell. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. With that, we can invite Councillor Thorne back into the chamber. Moving on to item number 2, item number 2, recommendations from the, that's the only one.
No, there's some, only one from closed, sorry. Yeah. So committee of the whole is next, and there are 2 recommendations from the same meeting. So similar to the last one, the background is as follows. During the committee of the whole meeting of March 25th, 2024, Salisbury Town Council was presented with a presentation and update on the proposed recreation master plan. This project was initiated in 2023 and included online surveys of residents, promoted online and via mail out, a survey with recreation programmers, council and town staff, in-person consultations at the town's ward block parties in 2024, and more. Acting on the action items in the plan is a strategic action item in the community and quality of life pillar. The intent of the recreation master plan is to set the vision for the next 10 years of recreation programming and will be used as a framework to evaluate programming, recreation offerings, capital investment plans, grant applications, and more. So with that recommendation on the floor.
I move that council ratify the town of the Salisbury Recreation Master Plan and direct administration to begin executing the implementation.
Second. Moved by Councillor Bannister, second by Councillor Olinas. Questions to the motion?
I'd just like to say thank you to the staff and
Yeah.
everybody involved to put that together. It's a big moment for the town.
Publish it in the next few days too, so the residents can
Mhm.
peruse the light reading. But, we're glad to have that checkbox. It's been a year, I guess, of working on it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, with that, no additional questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Second recommendation from the same committee of the whole meeting is as follows. During the committee of the whole meeting of March 25th, 2024, Salisbury Town Council was presented with proposed streetlight policy. In 2023, the town began adding streetlights in former LSDs in strategic locations based partially on public input, but in order to prioritize areas where there were specific public safety concerns, such as at intersections or in high visibility areas as examples. The proposed policy, based on input at committee of the whole, continues this process in former LSDs and adds other criteria, including but not limited to Canada Post community mailboxes, as part of the locations where the town has discretion to request streetlights. The policy also speaks to maintaining the former village subunit street light level of service, which is one streetlight per every 2 power poles, how costs are shared among subunits for streetlights, and how the public can request these streetlights. The request process for residents outside of those that are at the town's discretion consists of the collection of agreeable signatures in the vicinity and the petition, which is subsequently added to the consent agenda for Salisbury Town Council for formal ratification. With that recommendation on the floor.
I'll move that council approve the streetlight policy as presented.
Moved by Councillor Thorne,
I'll second it.
seconded by Deputy Mayor Glant. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. So with that, we'll move on to reports from administration. Item number 1, award of RFP, Sols 2024-02 Recreation Facility Feasibility Study.
So council would likely recall the March regular council meeting, we presented a recommendation as it relates to the strategic plan item. Council had the preference of resubmitting or resoliciting proposals for additional bids. After that, and in consultation with the steering committee for this project, we issued it on NBON and received 2 bids. Which were subsequently evaluated by a committee consisting of the Director of Recreation and Wellness, Massimo, myself, and a representative from the steering committee, being one of the volunteers of that committee. And with that, we ranked the two submissions and have a recommendation on the floor accordingly.
I move that council award RFP SALS 2024-02, a feasibility study for an indoor recreation facility to Trace Planning and Design in the amount of $42,240, exclusive of HST, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and execute an agreement with RDC if successful in the funding of the application.
Moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Colwell. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor?
Right?
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Moving on to number 2, award of tender Sols 2024-06, construction of amphitheater.
So this is another strategic plan item in the 2023 to 2026 strategic plan. Council likely recalls a year to this meeting last year where administration had proposed submitting an application to Canadian Heritage's Legacy Fund program, which consists of funding for cultural or recreational community space gathering assets when they're part of celebrations that are tied to community anniversaries in 25 or 50-year increments once you pass the 100th year. So in this case, we applied for a capital asset being an amphitheater to be installed at Highland Park as part of the Salisbury 250 commemorative programming and work. And it's called Legacy Fund in the sense that they want some sort of capital permanent legacy to be installed. The amphitheater is the last item out of the Highland Park revitalization plan, which would have been in 2014 or 2015, I forget the year exactly. Given land that was also acquired by the municipality in that vicinity, provides an exciting opportunity to complete that revitalization plan and look forward to what the park can become with additional assets moving forward into the future. So with that, the municipality tendered for the construction of the amphitheater, having secured two of the primary funders with confidence from Canadian Heritage that there was something forthcoming, which has since been confirmed. So this project is funded mostly by Canadian Heritage, with additional funders being both RDC with the province and ACOA with the federal government as well. And the town's contribution is through the existing Village of Salisbury CCBF, formerly known as gas tax, dollars. So with that, we have a recommendation on the floor, and then can speak to any questions, should there be any, on the project or the tendering process.
I'll move that council award tender Sols 2024-06, construction of an amphitheater to Quantum Construction for a total price of $750,649.36. Excluding HST, authorize administration to carry a construction contingency of up to 10% of total contract cost, including HST, and authorize the clerk and mayor to sign a CCDC for unit price contract pursuant to the tender specifications for the completion of this work.
Moved by Councilor Lenis, seconded by Councilor Thorne. Questions to the motion?
Just great job getting everyone else to pay for this except for us.
Yes.
Congratulations.
It was an exciting letter to get, we will put it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
And
Great
just
addition to the park.
to clarify, the motion as stated will give us everything that was part of the project. That was
Yeah,
expected,
yeah,
like the electrical work in the park. and
Yeah,
the-
yeah, so
the seating,
I
everything
can
that-
probably I should give some more context too. We received 3 bids, this being the lowest. The overall scope, we just got confirmation today that we're able to speak to some of the funders' commitments, because initially we're not allowed to say anything publicly until they give us the green light. So the ACOA comms team will work on something formal that we can issue to residents, that we can provide them with renderings to show as well. But as a synopsis, it's an amphitheater accessible with a ramp to get from the bottom, concrete stone wall seating, electrical all at the upper level of the park, which provides electrical bollards for Christmas lights to avoid generators, storage building at the back, flagpoles, and improvements to the trail to access from the back and front of the amphitheater. So there's a lot more than just the asset, but
It looks so
overall,
nice.
It's exciting.
Great to see that.
Christmas is gonna be one.
I know, right?
Right?
And Salisbury 250, our first
Yeah.
Christmas with that. It's
Yeah.
gonna be amazing.
It's awesome. Great job.
What was the story on the 2023 sign or 2024 sign?
so that's gonna be part of if we don't have to use the contingency, so part of the piece, you mean the 250 sign? Yeah, so part of the piece of the initial application that we submitted last summer basically had 3D interpretive sign, basically, that had historical vinyl wrapping on it. And so we have pricing on it. Well, actually, we don't have pricing on it yet, but are still getting pricing on it to update from last summer. And so Canadian Heritage may not require us to do that. And if they do, then it would come out of the contingency. And if we have to use the
It's part of-
contingency,
Part of the
initial application.
initial
yeah.
application, when we put it in, that typically a lot of the bids that have that, do have that type of information.
And we don't even know where it would be going yet because we did not, we did not get that scoped out until we knew we had funding. So we're just going back and forth with them now.
I assume with the flagpoles would make the most sense, but regardless, it makes a lot of sense to do something to that effect, especially if you have the contingency fund not being used.
Yeah, yeah, and we're expecting like quite literally today or tomorrow the finalized pricing and rendering, waiting on a few different things. And then we'll have to get the content, that kind of thing to wrap on. It would be we're not gonna invent the wheel. Charlottetown has a really good example that would work perfect for us, where they have the years and they wrap it. They change one letter every year, so that Canadian Heritage likes that concept because we can have 250 for this year and maybe even next, and then switch it moving forward. And all you do is just wrap the metal letters. So all that to say, the intent is still to proceed with that, and we're still confident we can. But the way that the contract is awarded too is that we could negotiate with the lowest bidder for those per unit item things in that overall project to try our best to make it happen. And then we'll have to come back to council for an award anyways.
Yes, to me, like, if you still want to do that and the price balloon for one reason or another, I mean, the stone seating could be removed for some,
Yes.
like, there are different elements that could be adjusted.
Exactly.
Relative to the scope.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll echo just every council member's comments. I just want to thank the staff for the diligence. I mean, I don't think the council understands all of the calls and meetings and the paperwork that was involved in driving forward. So kudos to the staff for driving this vision. Any additional questions? No additional questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item 3, award of tender, Sauls 2024-07, Braemar to Park and Trail Construction.
So another project that is of excitement and has been something that's been on the list for quite some time. As a summary, the town had prepared a trail concept plan back in 2017 through the Regional Service Commission. It was updated by council earlier this year, and one of the connections to facilitate or improve our existing trail network significantly was to connect Highland Park to Parkin Street as about a 1.8 kilometer trail connection. And so after a survey last year with the participation funds, this was the priority project. We had a concept done to start socializing it more formally with landowners to secure easements, which either easements or letter of intent have been signed with all landowners in question. Applications have been submitted to both RDC and ACOA. They were submitted last fall and then had to be resubmitted with updated letters of intent from landowners at the end of February. We tendered around, I think, the same day as the amphitheater, if not very close to it, and received 4 bids for the project, the lowest of which is being recommended for an award. Now, we will say we don't have, as noted in the memo, we don't have formal commitment from RDC or ACOA, but given the pricing that remains valid for 30 days, and given the fact that this is about 35% lower than the trail was anticipated to cost, based on the consultant's probable cost of the project when we went to tender, we're recommending an award based on the fact that the town's participation funding, plus the town's, again, using the same contribution as the amphitheater, being the former village's CCBF, formerly known as gas tax dollars, funds cover about half of it. And knowing that the municipality will be getting the updated CCBF agreement dollars, which will be at least 330,000 annually and up to 480,000 annually, depending on which scenario the province chooses. It's our recommendation that we proceed with an award to lock in the contract price with the contractors. And so this will be connecting the Highland Park through Braemar Street. So initially we had the intent of doing a boardwalk. We've added that to phase 2 because of conversations with the province for wetlands permits. So it would connect via Braemar, include upgrades to the existing woodland trail to make it accessible, access down below the river under the bridge, and then up towards where the sewer easement is. It also includes drainage repairs and installation of the standard trail items such as the bench, bases, garbage and dog waste, dog stations. Yeah, I was trying to find a way to say that. Dog stations. and some improvements to the parking on the opposite end, where the trail would connect to at Parkin Street. And then this also provides the municipality to continue working towards the trail concept plan, which obviously Parkin Street connects to the shared ATV pedestrian trail in the municipality, which provides future opportunities for connection. And there's also future connection opportunities along the trail, whether it be the grocery store or some key community partners along the way. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor, and then happy to answer any questions or speak to any of the logistics of why and how we're recommending an award at this time.
I move that council award tender cells 2024-07 Braemar to Parkin Street Trail Construction to J.K. Fraser and Sons Limited for a price of $430,533, excluding HST. Authorize administration to carry construction contingency up to 10% of the total contract cost, including HST, and authorize the clerk mayor to sign a CCDC4 unit price contract pursuant to the tender specifications for the completion of this work.
Seconded.
So moved by Councillor Dykstra, seconded by Councillor Oblinus. Questions to the motion? My only one is a small one. Would signage be included on that?
Yeah, there's an allowance, and we also have a partner in the biosphere reserve, that's Unlimited. There's multiple partners that are interested in partnering with us in the signage too. Yes.
We really should highlight to the residents that these two very large projects are being done without impacting the tax rate as well, like
Yes,
outside of the tax rate.
Yeah, that's a good point.
absolutely.
Outside funding and
Yeah.
I
the
think
benefits
that's a-
of participation
It's a
award.
good point, and this, I think you've noted it, this rail connection has been, talked about for the last 7, almost 8 years. And I do know previous councils tried to move forward. There's a lot of work, again, kudos to staff, just on a lot of the work that took place in the background, the non-fund stuff on getting easements in place and all of those type of things. And trust me, that was a lot of work, and it was things that that's been years in coming, so it just doesn't happen overnight, so, thank you for the patience from council, but the general public as well, who've wanted this, for a long time. We haven't voted yet, so.
Is there any issue with the parking connection? Is there anything that has to be done for the residents of the Parkin Street area?
It would connect to,
Where the park is now?
yeah, so there's, I think at a certain, I wouldn't know exactly where it is, but it's around where the lift station is, where we would kind of stop the trail construction.
Yeah.
There's some work that we have to do, like allowances for like gravel, that sort of thing, and then they're gonna widen, where you park vehicles near the park. And then as part of phase 2, there's also like a gazebo kind of thing that will be added to the park as part of phase 2 of that, to add benches and another place to kind of stop us, because it would become another entrance to the trail.
Yeah.
So to provide more trail amenities basically, but for phase 1, it's making the connection and then some filling in potholes basically with gravel.
But I also see it as a connection to the MB Trail through the Trestle Bridge, so I don't know if there'll be increased traffic on parking because of that, or?
Not vehicle traffic.
Yeah.
Because it's still blocked at the end of.
Yeah, there'll still be P gates to block like vehicle traffic.
It's
from
well,
access.
Foot
cyclists.
traffic.
Yes,
Foot traffic.
yes, there will be, yeah.
Though, and the other, I think the other things for council's perspective, and, the previous director for public works would have talked about, that trail that's gonna come through the park and as well, is a good thing for our public works from an access to sewer lines and provides ease of access. So it's actually a positive that they looked at from a benefit to our community as well. That's good, a bonus to all of that. Additional questions? No additional questions, all in favor?
Right?
Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Yeehaw.
All right, so moving on to item number 4, council tender 24 BDC 522.
Bear with me as I try to explain another funding mechanism or nuances behind them. So as council would know, the municipality was approved under the provincial municipal highway program, so PMHP program. which is a municipal and provincial partnership to resurface above ground infrastructure only for provincially owned roadways within road networks that are under the jurisdiction of the municipality. So in our case, it's essentially the provincial roads in the former village, being Route 106 or Main Street, 112 being River Road and Fredericton Road. Those are the only kind of two or three, I guess, technically. And so this year, one of our projects in our 5-year plan that we submit annually was approved for funding by the province, which was Route 106 or Main Street from River Road all the way to Granite, essentially. And so what this project would be is, as mentioned, above ground level only. And last year in August, the province sent us somewhat of an ambiguous letter saying we may provide top-up funding for you due to inflationary increases, but you won't know until March. And so we tendered this in February as well. We did do survey pickups. We extended it to go to Fredericton Road as opposed to stopping at River in hopes of getting additional funding, not knowing that the price would again come in lower than anticipated, and that the funding top up from the province would be more than anticipated as well. So those two things usually do not happen, especially at the same time. And so when the project was tendered, it was tendered with a small street reconstruction project, which was a small portion of Douglas Street, which is basically, if you've been here on a school morning, where staff park. And so we had looked at using our municipal street resurfacing budget on this year. And then it was confirmed that it does need a full reconstruction given the state of the base underneath. So if I do a bit of a refresher for the asset management plan, that's one of the top priority assets as overall, as well as streets. Mainly given its location to the schools and then the quantity of traffic that's driven on it. Hence why we explored that this year. With the prices that came in for the tender and the top-up funding that was available, staff thought it would be prudent to maximize the provincial PMHP dollars for a couple of reasons. One, it's you use it or you lose it. Two, being this will be our last year of only needing to contribute 10%, because this is a project that was approved under the former village of Salisbury, which means that the contribution is 10% as opposed to 25% for any future projects under the incorporation status of a town. And so in consultation with the lowest bidder, we essentially went back and forth to see what distance we could get to maximize the provincial dollars, which is about 1.5 kilometers. If we get to a point where we'll exhaust that provincial funding, it would also give us the ability to issue a change order with the lowest bidder to pull whatever amount that additional meterage would be and put it towards a municipal street that only requires a resurfacing. So that doesn't require a full reconstruct. And given the distance that they'll be going on Route 106, I dare to say, I guarantee we can find a street along there that doesn't need additional mobilization, and that is a top priority on the asset management plan that can be resurfaced and not fully reconstructed. So with that, if you look on your recommendation sheet, because when we issued the council package, we were still in post-tender addendum negotiations with the lowest bidder. And so it was circulated in the recommendation overview or summary. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor, and then again, happy to answer any questions as to why these streets, why post-tender addendums, how that process works, or what this will look like in terms of pavement in Salisbury this summer. Which is, I think, what matters most.
Okay, I'll move that council award tender 24-BDC 522 in part / as amended pursuant to contract specifications and based on negotiations with the lowest bidder to resurface approximately 1.5 kilometers of street, including a portion of Route 106 Main Street, under the Provincial Municipal Highways Program, to the lowest bidder being McDonald Paving and Construction, a division of Miller Paving Limited, for a revised contract price of, I'm just going to say the numbers, 678,753 and 50 cents, excluding HST. So moved.
Moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Dykstra. Questions to the motion?
So 1.5 kilometers will start at the Fredericton Road and go Who, where, what
Granite.
point?
It's gonna go further than Granite even.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's, so,
All
it
the way to,
depends.
all the way to Reader for that culvert construction?
That's one thing,
That was my
that's,
question.
Wouldn't that be fun?
unfortunately, it probably won't go that far. But there's a couple pieces. So two things. One is it's going to depend on because we don't have the rest picked up or the engineering drawing. So there may be more pavement in one spot versus another. That's kind of how they pick the units. They did do the surveys last week. Englobe is who has the contract for this from an engineering perspective. They did do the pickups all the way to River Road or Reader Road, just so we have it done. Because the other piece is that there's a confirmed commitment in the province's plan that was released last week or the week before for what was supposed to be River Road to Fredericton Road. So now that we're going to do that this year, we can allocate those dollars to something else next year, and so we can just extend where we go. But give or take, we have a civic address to be exact, but it's the extra 220 meters that way and about 180 meters past Granite is what we're looking at.
So having said that, does it make sense to leave River Road to 112 Fredericton Road till next year to be able to get to the Reader Road this year?
We wouldn't be able to get that far, and we have that already picked up, and we did get confirmation that basically the province gives us, here's your allocation for this year, and in that case, for next year. We haven't got the official letter that says the amount for that, but we assume that it would be the amount that we put in our plan, which means that we can add that on next year. Where that's picked up and drawn, it would be in our best interest to add that there. And then without kind of confirming, I would assume that what we would do is include some of the culvert replacements on the opposite direction. That's not eligible under that funding, so we would have to do that.
Yeah.
So we would include that in our capital plan for next year, now that we know the province is giving us that contribution. So our intent is to go all the way there and keep going as far as we can. We won't get quite to Reader Road, but we'll be making a good chunk, a good chunk in the progress.
I feel like you're playing an excellent strategic game with all of this money, so great job.
Trying to make it.
How do you do capital?
Yeah,
My brain's about to explode.
whatever you think is good, go for
I
it.
do have another question around,
Mhm.
it's kind of tangentially related to this, where we talked about Douglas.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to move that street down on the capital asset management plan until after we know what's happening with the school? Because it may require rearrangement of what goes on there.
Probably wouldn't be a horrible idea, but chances are that street is still gonna need to be reconstructed anyways, because there's still a high school and it's still a high traffic street, which is what prioritizes it on the asset management plan in
Yeah.
terms of criticality. But kind of what we mentioned, the CRF, is that the reality is that a lot of the streets that say this needs to be in the capital plan, and you need to do an assessment as to what type of work will repair it. A lot of those are gonna need partially reconstructs. So, where we just updated our asset management plan, what we'll look at as we plan our capital budget for next year, is to say exactly that. Okay, so do we defer this or defer that? And also the Fed infrastructure dollars need to come into play when we look at reconstructions because it's super expensive. And oftentimes, well, it doesn't make sense to do a reconstruction unless you replace the sewer infrastructure underneath. And that's an ideal one because there is none. So there's not a need to tie in as much. So all that to say, we'll figure out where it should fall, and council will have the ability to move those puzzle pieces around when we bring the updated plan forward. But the reason that it was recommended this year is because it's high up on the criticality list, which is not just because of its proximity to the school, definitely drives that. But there's some other factors at play too. That's my non-engineer explanation of how that street gets
That
on
is
that.
smart to me.
Again, I'll say kudos, this council, the first time in town history to actually using that, by that. With budgeting and with planning of that asset management plan, actually looking at those critical areas and putting it into the plan, so.
I'll echo Nathan's concern. I don't want it reconstructed if it's gonna get moved or adjusted or whatever. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
There's still gonna be at least one school here though.
I'm not, I'm
Or
not
two,
disputing that, but
Yeah,
if we
Could
hear, I mean,
shift somewhat depending on.
yeah.
it's just hard to say at this point, so.
And I think the
Oh.
piece
Just gonna say, hopefully, the new school,
Well, we should.
we can be hearing some more about
Yeah.
what's
Right,
going
we
on
should have
there
a good impression.
before that's actually being done,
Yeah.
is all I'm gonna add to it.
Yeah, so when the plan comes back, like we'll be able to say, because in the asset management plan, Douglas Street was high criticality, high importance for repair, but didn't say if it needed a reconstruct or a resurface. And so the initial inspection confirmed a reconstruct, and we tried to say, maybe not, and got them to do a core sample, which confirmed that it does need a reconstruct. Now that we know that, we can use that to make an informed decision as to, does it make sense to do it, or does it make sense to wait? That'll all be part of our
Yep.
capital discussions in the late summer, early fall.
No additional questions? With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 5, award of RFQ Sols 2024-08 annual street patching program.
So another recommended award, this one being the annual patching program. This was issued given the dollar value by RFQ, so by invite to proponents. It was issued to 3, 2 of which submitted pricing proposals. And with that, we are recommending the lowest bidder. And as you'll note in the recommendation, we're essentially awarding based on an anticipated contract value because it's anticipated tonnage. We have $80,000 in the former village subunits budget in 2024 to undertake our annual patching program, and our anticipated tonnage will be under that. So the motion also gives us the discretion as they start the work to add as and if necessary. So with that recommendation on the floor, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll do it. I'll move the council award RFQ Sols 2024-08 annual asphalt patching program to Birch Hill Construction for the price of $485 per ton, with an estimated contract cost of $60,625 based on anticipated tonnage, and provide the town with the discretion to increase tonnage at the fixed per unit cost as may be required to fulfill the patching requirements in Ward 3, former village. So moved.
Moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Bannister. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 6, lease agreement, protective services vehicle.
So this one is looking for council authorization to essentially sign a lease agreement. As a bit of context, as noted in the CRF, staff had explored a number of different vehicle options for a vehicle for the Protective Services Department. This year, we have about 15,000 budgeted in our operating budget for a vehicle. We explored different refurbished options, explored different lease options from different providers, and also explored acquiring from essentially other government surplus sources. So we checked with Justice and Public Safety, other municipalities, and provincial crown corps essentially. And this was determined to be the most appropriate option given our budget for this year, recognizing the fact that it does lock us into a multi-year commitment. So with that, a recommendation on the floor, and then again, if you haven't heard me say it enough tonight, happy to answer any questions.
I move council authorize the clerk mayor to sign a 48-month lease with monthly payments of $664.86 and a subsequent lease buyout of $13,335.09, excluding HST, for a 2023 Chevrolet Equinox to be used for the purposes of furnishing the Protective Services Department with a vehicle.
Seconded.
Moved by Councillor Tory, seconded by Councillor Venus. Questions to the motion?
Why leasing over financing, just out of curiosity?
Yeah.
Budgeting?
Yeah, the budget amount, yeah.
Because I'm assuming over the time period, it'd be cheaper to finance.
It would be I don't have the numbers in front of me, but this would be it's also from the provider that has this price does long-term leases, basically. It's who we do even our summertime truck rentals from. And so that was basically the lowest dollar value that we could lock in.
No.
Love it. I like the pictures. Thanks for including them. I feel like I know what we're doing.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah.
Was that the only rendering, or did you have other companies for that as well?
We did have others, yes. That was the lowest solicited through the
Okay.
RFQ process.
Curious.
No additional questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item number 7, revised 2019-2023 Canada Community Building Fund CCBF agreement.
I'll give a bit of context and then Diane, you might have to correct me if I'm wrong, but basically this is a formality whereby we need a motion from council to allocate the existing CCBF dollars to the 2 projects that we referenced earlier. In November of 2023, council passed a resolution that RDC wanted to make sure that we could confirm the commitment, but we didn't want to actually ratify the plan until we had confirmed funding and the recommendations passed from the earlier agenda items to do the projects. So with that, we need a resolution to submit the plan, which is, I think, our 3rd time submitting it for this 5-year agreement. And we'll soon come back to council to do an updated plan for the next 5 years with the new full town allotment. But just as a reminder, this is the existing village, what's in the bank, basically. We're not getting any more under this agreement. So it's to reallocate the existing funds available.
I move that the document entitled Village of Salisbury 5-Year Capital Investment Plan for the GTF Administrative Agreement 2019 to 2023 be adopted.
Moved by Councillor Dykstra, seconded by Councillor Bannister. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Reminded, motion carried. Moving on to item number 9, bylaws. Number 1, motion amending Schedule A of Town of Salisbury bylaw. Number 5, a bylaw reflecting driveway culverts and entrances.
So under bylaw number 5, respecting driveway culverts and entrances, which is, of course, for Ward 3 only. The Schedule B lists the fees and charges of these services. I believe this was discussed at one of the prior meetings to explain that, where am I? Under the new proposed schedule, the deposit was for $5,000 to be required for the installation of a new culvert. Any funds from that deposit that are not used to cover the cost will then be returned to the applicant. To proceed with this, the bylaw stays the same, but the schedule is what needs to change. And so this is why we put things in schedules, that we don't need to do 3 readings or any enactments or that sort of thing. We just need to make a motion to amend the actual schedule fees. So if there's any questions again, and recommendation is there, if anybody wishes to proceed.
I move the council approve the amended Schedule B fees and charges in the Town of Salisbury bylaw number 6. A, bylaw respecting driveway culverts and entrances to reflect an updated deposit based on system for new culvert installations and reflect annual pricing increases for culvert extensions and curb sidewalk revisions.
Moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Roblinas. Questions to the motion?
I do.
Councillor Thorne, first, and then we'll move on to
Okay,
Councillor Roblinas.
I feel like I'm too invested in this policy at this point in time. So I like the deposits. I'm just wondering, like, 7 line items still have prices on it without, like, are we still gonna have to change this annually to update those prices, or are they included in the, like, total I don't get it.
So we just can't charge a $5,000 deposit because of the dollar value of those extensions, basically. Trevor, and
Right.
there's also very few. That's the other thing.
Yes.
I don't know,
Okay.
Trevor, if you want to
But like,
speak
you're
to the,
still gonna have to change it annually?
we would change it as the prices surpass that. So
Okay.
what we're hoping, and again, if the tenders or anything of any indication, there's don't jinx it. There's some sort of stabilization that is happening
Yeah.
finally. And so hopefully we will not see things like culverts come in abnormally high. Like
Okay.
the what used to happen is it didn't need to be increased in so many years because the cost didn't increase in
Right.
so many years. So that's the hope. Long answer is that if we get an exorbitant amount of driveway extension requests and the cost is higher than that, then yes, we'll come back.
Okay,
For those
I
people.
just like don't wanna see this every year.
I don't want to bring it
That's
back.
where I'm at with it. So I was surprised to still see some things, but I get what you're saying.
We just can't,
It makes sense.
it's just,
Right, but the bulk of it should be covered in this deposit amount
Yes.
that we don't have to see.
All new driveway culverts
Yeah,
will be covered
okay.
through the deposit
All right,
system.
I'm done talking about this
The only
policy forever.
extension would be as if, let's say you bought a house and you decided that you wanted
Widen
a little wider, put your RV or
Sure.
whatever, that's typically the
Like,
only extension.
Every year, this is not covered.
No, think of how many meters you would have to extend it to get to a $5,000 deposit.
Don't ask me.
That's a
no, they don't
long
know.
driveway. That then contravenes the zoning bylaw and
Don't
stuff, or
give me
whatever bylaw it is in, like it would present other issues.
Okay, I'm fine.
So my question is, and I don't mind talking about this, if you want to bring it back next year, go ahead.
I'm walking up.
In the council report, it says that any funds from the deposit that are not used to cover costs will be returned to the applicant. Are we also going to charge the applicant if they go above the $5,000 cost?
Yes, we would, but the piece is that the 5,000 was selected based on the highest piece. There's only one exception that was, I think it was slightly over, I think is what it would have been with that
The
increase.
36
The
inch.
thirty-six
Yeah.
is $4,700.
That was last year, like that was 2023.
That's
Right.
52
Right.
or
I
5,300.
forget exactly what it was
Right,
in the
okay.
last one, and so Trevor, I don't know exactly how many, but it's very rare, so we don't anticipate seeing that.
I just want to make sure we weren't capping it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
No, it's in
it's just a
special-
deposit.
Yeah.
It says deposit on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do residents have to go through the village?
yes, because they become our culvert after, becomes a municipal asset.
Kind of for quality control.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah,
And part of ditching, I would.
Do we have that written in the policy,
it's in the bylaw.
in the bylaw?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, and it speaks to like that it becomes a municipal asset, and that's why we have culvert replacements. We do a number of those on an annual basis, is because we have to replace
We
the
know.
culverts, yeah, they're ours, yeah.
I'm gonna be very interested to hear when you bring this back in a year, how the deposit, not because you have to, but just like how it went. Like, how did this new system go? Did we like it? Did we hate it? Like, I'm excited to hear.
You'll definitely hear on
I
that piece.
can't wait.
Yeah, we will be sure to keep you updated.
So that brings up a question. If the former village, Ward 3 is where the ownership of the culverts takes place, how does it apply to the outside wards? And therefore, does it in the future?
So that's one of the questions, we had asked this last year when we were reviewing this, and I forget, I don't think DTI owns them in the former,
I'd like a new culvert.
What's that?
I'd like a new culvert.
You can call DTI, you can wait for
Yeah.
a long
You can apply for
time.
it and you can
Yeah.
ask for it.
Oh, don't worry, I'm putting water over the road to piss them off, but then that's a whole.
But
You
then,
can write a
but then
check
they
for the
don't,
deposit now if you want.
yeah, they don't own it. So
If-
for us, if it breaks, then we go replace it.
Yeah.
Cause it's,
The town, yeah, yeah. So
But if the road ownership changes in the future, will the culvert ownership also change? In the
hypothetically, unless where the province doesn't own them now,
Right.
I would say that would be a municipal argument to say, if we have no idea who installed what, where, when, and how, or what is there, I would say it would be in our best interest to push back on that, but we would have the exact same conversations with the roads. So it would be part of those conversations, I would
So
suspect.
who
Yeah.
owns the culverts if the province does it?
The province owns them, but not, I don't think they own the residential culvert ones, because you can do it on your own if you're in a former LSD for your driveway. For your driveway,
apply.
yes, but you can
Make sure
still,
that
you can
we-
hire your own contractor, they have like
It's gonna say
specifications you have to
right.
follow, like,
Yeah, that's right.
there's still a process,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Still a process,
Yeah.
but
I think it's to expedite the timeline, I think.
Everybody
Right.
notices a new culvert literally going in anywhere.
What's that?
You know.
In.
give it up, John.
No additional questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Just want to remind people that are on the Teams call or anybody in the audience tonight that we've gone through a lot of motions tonight, but I just wanted, for people that are not familiar with the process, we do many of the whole meetings where a lot of this stuff has been gone through with a lot of diligence and a lot of things beforehand. That's what makes these meetings go efficiently, so thanks to the staff for that. Moving on, now for the members of the gallery, we are moving into a closed session, contractual financial 68(1)(c), local governance act, and with that, with the closed session, we will ask anybody.
Need a motion first.
Sorry, motion for the closed.
You're selling the library board stuff?
After.
That's after.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Detory. All in favor, questions to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
We are now in closed. Can I have a motion to return back to the regular council session, please?
So moved.
By Councilor Thorne,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Bannister. Any
Yeah.
questions from turning back to regular council? No questions to the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried, please note. I,
Oh, you got the light gray.
Seconded.
Nice.
We're twins and I love that.
What made it
Nice
happen?
and light gray.
With that, we are going to move on to item number 11, mayor and councilor statements and inquiries. Just like to, on behalf of council and the community, thank the Quinnipiac Salisbury AA Flyers for their 3-peat provincial championship this weekend. And a reminder that there's a touch and tractor event this weekend coming up as part of Salisbury 250 and Agriculture Month. And encouraging everybody to get out to that with that, councilors. Nothing additional from councilors. With that, moving on to item number 12, notices of motions and resolutions. Item number 1, appointment of Salisbury Public Library board members.
What page are we on? I'm putting it on 3.
I'll move.
1-0.
Do you want the motion?
Yes, please.
I'll move that council reappoint Fran Bowdridge, Pam Cochran, Brenda Lewis, Linda Steves, and Stephanie Thorne for the remainder of their pre-existing terms, and appoint Connie Curtis to the Salisbury Public Library Board for a 3-year term.
Moved by Councilor Molina, seconded by Councilor Colwell. Questions to the motion? No questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Congratulations to Councilor Thorne on,
Oh, thanks, everyone.
it is. Been an exciting night here in the chamber. Moving on to item number 2, motion authorizing funding agreement with the Regional Development Corporation and residential development feasibility work.
I'll just say this is a formality of work that's awarded. We have a formal agreement to sign to receive the funding.
I'll move that council authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal on the funding agreement between the town of Salisbury and the Regional Development Corporation for the purposes of housing development on municipal land whereby RDC will pay 75% of the project cost up to $113,273.
Second it.
Moved by Councilor Dykstra, seconded by Councilor Bannister. Questions to the motion?
Remind.
No questions to the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item number 3, motion authorizing signature with Canadian Heritage Amphitheater Funding Agreement.
And same thing, formality of the funding agreement, for Canadian Heritage for the amphitheater project that we referenced earlier. It's the authorization to sign the agreement. It's already been done with RDC.
I move that council authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal on the funding agreement between the town of Salisbury and the Department of Canadian Heritage for the Salisbury 250 Amphitheater and related projects, including the completion of Annex F that authorizes the clerk/treasurer and CAO to serve as authorized representatives for the purposes of executing this agreement.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Glant. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Reminded, motion carried. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Sure.
So moved.
So moved by Councilor Thorne, seconded by Councilor Bannister. Questions to the motion? Seeing none. Favor?
Aye.